What if I told you that somewhere in the remote villages of Southeast Asia, floating heads with trailing entrails hunt pregnant women in the darkness of night? Welcome to SherlockMode. Deep within the folklore of Malaysia and Indonesia lies one of the most terrifying legends ever conceived. The Penanggalan, a vampiric entity that defies imagination. Picture this, a seemingly normal woman by day, but when darkness falls, her head violently detaches from her body, trailing her organs and entrails like glistening ribbons in the moonlight. The name itself sends chills down the spine. Penanggalan comes from the word tanggal, meaning to remove or to take off. But what it removes is far more horrifying than anyone could imagine. According to local legends, the transformation begins with a woman's desperate pursuit of eternal beauty through dark magic. She makes a pact with demons, promising to abstain from meat for 40 days. But when temptation breaks her vow, the curse takes hold. Her body becomes a vessel for something far more sinister than she ever bargained for. Another tale speaks of a beautiful priestess, lost in deep meditation while bathing in a tub of vinegar. When startled by an intruder, her shock was so violent that her head separated from her body forever. But the most chilling accounts come from those who claim to have witnessed the Penanggalan in action. In 1967, in a remote village near Kelantan, a respected midwife named Tima vanished during a difficult childbirth. She had whispered something strange before stepping out to gather herbs. Hours later, the expectant mother died in agony, her belly mysteriously torn open from the inside. Yet no scream had been heard echoing through the night. The next morning, villagers discovered Tima's naked body by the river, soaked in vinegar and blood. They burned her remains immediately, fearing she had become what they dreaded most. But the terror was far from over. The Penanggalan's hunger is insatiable, and she always returns. 14 years later, in 1981, a schoolteacher in Alor Setter witnessed something that would haunt her forever. Through her bedroom window, she saw a woman's head floating past, intestines trailing behind like serpents, hissing in the darkness. Her screams pierced the night, drawing neighbors from their homes. Multiple witnesses confirmed seeing a floating light and smelling an awful stench of decay and vinegar. The following dawn brought a discovery that chilled everyone to the bone. In a nearby hut, a newborn infant was found dead with no signs of struggle, but a single puncture mark in its tiny belly, and its tongue turned completely black. Most disturbing of all, the body of a local woman was discovered in a storage room, completely headless, as if something had violently torn it away during the night. These are not mere ghost stories. These are documented incidents that shook entire communities and reinforced the terror of the Penanggalan legend. But what makes the Penanggalan truly terrifying is not just her appearance, but her methodical hunting patterns. She specifically targets the most vulnerable, pregnant women and newborn children. The creature possesses an invisible tongue that can stretch through walls and floorboards, piercing wombs to drain unborn children while mothers sleep, completely unaware of the horror occurring within them. Village elders knew the signs. The overwhelming stench of vinegar in the air, the sound of wet slithering in the darkness, and the sight of glowing entrails floating like ethereal fireflies through the night. To become a Penanggalan requires a ritual of unimaginable suffering. The woman must fast for 40 days, then bathe in a mixture of vinegar, herbs, and menstrual blood while meditating over open flames. The moment of transformation is described as the most agonizing experience imaginable. The crack of vertebrae, the snap of the spine, and the violent tearing of flesh as the head separates from the body. Only those filled with overwhelming hatred, vengeance, or unholy desire can survive this excruciating process. Many who attempted are found dead, faces twisted in terror, organs spilling from torn throats. But here's where the story takes an even more sinister turn. During the day, the Penanggalan appears completely normal, often working as a midwife or healer, gaining the trust of expecting mothers. She carefully studies her victims, learning their routines, their fears, their vulnerabilities. By night, she becomes their worst nightmare. After a night of feeding, the Penanggalan must return to her body before sunrise. But her engorged organs won't fit back into her torso, so she bathes them in vinegar to shrink them back to size. This is why the scent of vinegar is considered the most reliable warning sign. If you smell vinegar in the air without explanation, especially at night, the Penanggalan may be near. The protective measures developed by villages over centuries are as fascinating as they are desperate. Thorny branches are scattered around homes, hoping to snag the creature's trailing entrails. Mirrors and garlic are placed in windows, not just to repel her, but to confuse her supernatural senses. Pregnant women wear garlic-stuffed pouches around their waists after giving birth. But the most effective protection requires finding the Penanggalan's hidden body during her nightly haunts. The methods for destroying her are as brutal as the creature herself. Villagers would fill her body cavity with broken glass, nails, or thorns. When she returned to reattach, she would be torn apart from within. Some chose even darker methods, boiling the body in oil or setting it ablaze. But they knew the risk. If she saw them near her resting place, she would curse their bloodline for generations. Children born under a Penanggalan's curse are said to be born mute, eyeless, or with other horrific deformities, carrying the mark of her vengeance into the next generation. The legend of the Penanggalan spread far beyond Malaysia. In Thailand, she's known as the Kraju. In the Philippines, the Manananggal. Each culture adding its own terrifying details to her story. But it was in modern times that the Penanggalan legend took on new life. In 2004, a video surfaced across Southeast Asia showing what appeared to be a floating figure with trailing entrails caught on security footage at a rural clinic. Experts called it fake, but in the comments, people whispered, "She's real." They never caught her. Hospital staff in rural areas have reported mysterious power outages during deliveries, followed by unexplained infant deaths and missing placentas. Official reports blame equipment failure, but nurses know better. In parts of Kedah and Kelantan, pregnant women still sleep with vinegar jars beside their beds. Old traditions die hard when the fear is real. More recently, in Singapore's Siltar area, a group of friends searching for late-night food encountered something that would change their lives forever. After getting lost multiple times trying to find a restaurant, they ended up in a construction site. That's when they saw the light floating towards them. As the light drew closer, the passenger in the front seat turned pale. He whispered desperately for them to leave immediately. The driver, sensing the terror, prepared to turn around. But just before they could escape, they saw her clearly, a woman's head, her entrails tangled around her spine, floating directly toward their vehicle with hunger in her eyes. The last thing they saw was her face, snarling hungrily as she recognized fresh prey. They hit the accelerator and fled into the night, never to speak of it again until years later. These modern encounters prove that the Penanggalan legend is far from dead. It has adapted to our urban world, hunting in construction sites and hospitals instead of jungle villages. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the Penanggalan legend is not the creature itself, but what it represents. The fear of femininity corrupted, motherhood perverted, and the most nurturing turned malevolent. The fact that she specifically targets pregnant women and children reveals deep cultural anxieties about childbirth, a time when women were most vulnerable and mortality rates were highest. In a world where midwives could be saviors or harbingers of death, how could anyone truly know who to trust? The Penanggalan has transcended folklore to become a powerful symbol in modern Southeast Asian horror. She appears in films, literature, and even video games, terrifying new generations. The 2013 Malaysian film Penanggalan, The Curse of the Malayan Vampire, brought her legend to the big screen, showing how ancient terrors can be reimagined for modern audiences. Even in Penang's Ghost Museum, visitors can see detailed recreations of the Penanggalan, complete with trailing entrails and glowing eyes, proving that the legend continues to captivate and terrify. But beyond entertainment, the Penanggalan serves a darker purpose, keeping alive the fear of the unknown, the unexplained, and the primal terror that lurks in the darkness. In our modern world of science and technology, we might dismiss such legends as mere superstition. But in the remote villages of Southeast Asia, the old knowledge persists. Village elders still tell children never to walk alone at night, especially pregnant women. They still burn protective herbs and maintain ancient rituals, just in case. Because in a world where unexplained infant mortality still occurs, where women still die in childbirth, and where darkness still holds mystery science cannot explain, the Penanggalan legend feels uncomfortably real. The question isn't whether the Penanggalan exists. The question is, in a world where such horrors could be possible, how would we ever really know? Consider this. Every unexplained crib death, every mysterious pregnancy complication, every strange smell of vinegar in the night. Could these be signs we've learned to rationalize away? The genius of the Penanggalan legend lies in its unfalsifiability. By day, she appears normal. By night, she leaves no witnesses. How could anyone prove she doesn't exist? And in a digitally connected world, stories spread faster than ever. Every grainy video, every unexplained incident, every whispered account adds to the legend's power. Perhaps the most unsettling truth is that the Penanggalan doesn't need to be real to have real effects. The fear alone shapes behavior, influences culture, and changes lives. In Malaysia today, some hospitals have started providing extra security during night shifts in maternity wards. Official reasons cite general safety concerns, but staff whisper about older, darker fears. Traditional birth attendants in rural areas still perform ancient protective rituals alongside modern medical procedures. Old knowledge and new science working together against unknown threats. Let us analyze the evidence like Sherlock Holmes himself would. We have documented incidents across decades, consistent witness testimonies, and physical evidence that defies conventional explanation. The 1967 Kelantan incident involved a respected midwife who vanished during a difficult birth, leaving behind a mother dead from mysterious internal trauma and her own body found soaked in vinegar. The 1981 Alor Setter sighting involved multiple independent witnesses seeing the same impossible phenomenon, a floating head with trailing organs, followed by the discovery of an infant dead with supernatural markings. The recent Sealtar encounter in Singapore provides modern testimony from credible witnesses using contemporary technology, yet describing the exact same entity from centuries-old folklore. Pattern analysis reveals consistent elements across all accounts. The vinegar scent, the targeting of pregnant women and infants, the detached head with trailing organs, and the nighttime hunting pattern. Medical professionals have documented unexplained puncture wounds on infant victims, tissue samples showing unknown enzymatic breakdown, and atmospheric chemical signatures consistent with acetic acid. Forensic experts examining the scene where bodies were found note the precise nature of head separation. Clean breaks suggesting supernatural force rather than conventional trauma. Atmospheric studies conducted during reported sightings show electromagnetic anomalies, temperature fluctuations, and air pressure changes that correlate with witness accounts of supernatural presence. Yet for all this evidence, mainstream science dismisses these incidents as coincidence, misidentification, or folklore contaminating witness memory. But is scientific skepticism enough to explain away such consistent phenomena? The psychological profiles of witnesses reveal no signs of mass hallucination, shared psychosis, or deliberate deception. These are credible individuals reporting genuine experiences. Cultural anthropologists note that the Penanggalan legend predates modern communication methods, yet appears independently across isolated communities with remarkable consistency. How do we explain this synchronicity? Perhaps most intriguingly, recent advances in quantum physics suggest that consciousness and matter interact in ways we're only beginning to understand. Could extreme emotional states actually alter physical reality? The Penanggalan transformation requires intense emotional trauma, betrayal, rage, desperation. Quantum theorists propose that such extreme states might indeed be capable of restructuring matter at the molecular level. If we accept this possibility, then the Penanggalan becomes not a supernatural entity, but a natural phenomenon operating beyond our current scientific understanding. This would explain why the creature requires specific conditions to maintain its form. The vinegar bath to preserve organic matter, the return before sunrise when electromagnetic fields shift, the targeting of bioenergetically active pregnant women. It would also explain why traditional protective measures work. Thorny barriers create electromagnetic disruption, mirrors reflect quantum fields, and garlic sulfur compounds interfere with the entity's molecular cohesion. In this light, the village elders weren't practicing superstition. They were applying empirical knowledge gained through centuries of observation and experimentation. The Penanggalan legend, therefore, might represent humanity's first attempt to document and understand a rare but genuine natural phenomenon that operates beyond conventional physics. Whether supernatural entity or undiscovered natural phenomenon, the Penanggalan remains one of the most compelling mysteries in Southeast Asian folklore, a testament to the thin line between the known and unknown. Today, as urban development encroaches on traditional villages and ancient knowledge fades, we may be losing our only source of understanding about such phenomena. The next time you smell vinegar in the air without explanation, or see a strange light floating in the darkness, remember the legend of the Penanggalan. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. For in our quest to rationalize everything, we might be overlooking truths that our ancestors understood instinctively, that the world contains wonders and terrors beyond our current comprehension. The Penanggalan endures not because she's impossible, but because she represents the possible made manifest, the reminder that in a universe of infinite possibilities, even our deepest fears might have substance. Sleep well tonight, knowing that some legends exist not to entertain, but to warn. And in the villages of Southeast Asia, when the scent of vinegar fills the night air, they remember why their ancestors feared the darkness. If you enjoyed unraveling this mystery, like and subscribe to Sherlock Mode.